Hi, I'm Kevin Kuchenbecker, Planning, Zoning, and Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Deadwood, and welcome to another moment in Deadwood's history. We're down in the Archaeological and Archives Lab at City Hall. Mike Runge, who's got his chopsticks, he just took it out of his mouth, is here. He's our archivist, and right now he's cleaning some bottles. These came from our FEMA project, which we've done videos on. Mike, what do you have?
So I am working on our FEMA project. This was found along the Mickelson Trail along Whitewood Creek. Most of these bottles, they all are right around 1880 to about 1900. There's patent medicine, there's some alcoholic beverage bottles that are here as well. The unique part about it is that some of the bottles have unique characteristics on there. They have the manufacturer, or they actually, in this case, have some information. This particular one here, we're soaking them first to loosen up all of the debris in there, but if you can see there, this N.E. Franklin stands for Nathan E. Franklin. He was actually the son of Harris Franklin and Franklin Hotel notoriety. Nathan went on to become the mayor of Deadwood for a period of time, and this was his Palace Pharmacy that he operated along Lower Main Street, and that would have been from about 1890 to about 1900. By 1900, he got out of the pharmacy business and started working for one of the banks here in Deadwood, and eventually went on to become the mayor of Deadwood at that point in time. So it's kind of neat because the writing that you see on here actually can help us determine when it was manufactured, but it can also tell us as well who these people were and things like that as well.
And just Nathan Franklin also was the Adams House. It was the original builder of the Adams House, correct?
Actually, it was his dad.
His dad, that's right.
But he was here, yep. So.
And then this one is Gillette's Double Extract. So another medicine bottle at the time. These had some significance with the Drug and Alcohol FDA, right? Food and Drug Act?
Yes, so basically what happened was the reason these patent medicine bottles are so important is that most of these would have been things that would have been created before the Good Food and Drug Act of 1906. That was something that President Theodore Roosevelt passed in Congress and eventually became law, but it was where all of the ingredients had to be basically put on the bottles themselves. So these bottles that we're looking at here predate all of that. And that gives us a unique insight into what was being used in Deadwood at that particular time.
Another thing, this one's Julius Deacon. Deacon was a pharmacist here in Deadwood. This one says Deadwood, South Dakota, so it was after statehood, November of 1889. Yep. So we know that it would have been after that. Over here, we have a German bottle here. Mike, can you talk a little bit about this one?
All right, so when that came out of the ground, what was really pretty interesting is about that much is what was actually that we saw in there. And so we went in and we did a little bit of an excavation, and it kept coming. Initially, I thought that this was going to be an inkwell. They usually made inkwells out of this stoneware that you see here as well. But it just kept coming and coming and coming. And next thing you know, we pulled this full intact bottle out. So if you look here, there is a German eagle, kind of lion eagle in the center. I looked this up here. This particular brand or brew or whatever this was from about 1860 to 1880, and that was something, like I said, I did a real quick search on there. But what's kind of neat about it is that we've never found anything like this in both the Chinatowns and then also in Deadwood. So this is kind of a really unique, one-of-a-kind piece, and pretty excited. I know that this will give us much more information, and I'm looking forward to finding out, what this was, and maybe in a future one we'll be able to kind of talk a little more in depth about that as well.
And then, of course, your typical champagne bottles, beer bottles, were also found. About 24 in total through our monitoring of that FEMA project. Anytime we do construction in Deadwood, we require archaeology, and this is no different. But it being a FEMA project, we had to work closely with the National Park Service, the Historic Preservation and archaeologists of FEMA, and a whole layer of the South Dakota State Preservation Office. So we have the South Dakota Archaeological Research Center monitoring this. They were down. Let's talk a little bit about the stratigraphy and the profile of the wall, because I know the state was up and did a layer, because these were found about anywhere from 3 to 5 feet in depth from the current backyards, correct, Mike?
Yep.
And they talk meters, I still talk feet. But
So basically, one of the things that when we start talking about Deadwood and we talk about the different archaeological deposits, it's really good to kind of look at the stratigraphy. The stratigraphy is basically the different layers of soils and sediments and objects in the ground over the course of time. The best way to kind of describe it is think of a 7-layer salad where you have the different layers, or a 7-layer burrito where you have the different layers in there. So the things that are down lower are going to be much older than the things that are up above. Now intermixed in all that stuff is this kind of stuff. And these things, some things can be more diagnostic than others. Typically what we want to look for is something like this patent medicine bottle that has the information, or even on the bottom of this one, there's also the manufacturing marks. So if you look on there, you can actually see that as well. So all these things are indicators to kind of tell us how old the different layers are, and that's why we're in there looking for those things. Now, if you look over there, this is a profile that was from Mustang Sally's, and that was back in, I think, what's the date on there? I'm sorry. We'll say about 2012, 2015.
Right.
But what you're looking at there is a series of different stratigraphic layers. The top course is the base course that would have been added probably right around when gaming first came into Deadwood in the 90s.
so the asphalt would be of this. This is your base course.
Yep. Then the second layer that you have right there, that's when Mustang Sally's would have been built as an automobile dealership. And then you come down to section 3, which is a real dense section in there. That section, if you look closely, you see how mottled it is. There's different bits and pieces in there. If you get down closer, you can actually see where there's oxidized soil. Now, in the archaeological world, that's important stuff because that gives us some indicator. Now, when you jump down below that layer 4 right there, that's the important area. In 1894, there was a large fire that burnt the lower end of Deadwood's Main Street. Star and Bullock's hardware store and quite a few of the other buildings along Lower Main Street were lost. And that dark area that you see right there is actually the 1894 layer. Then, as you progress down lower, you get into another area. That's actually fill that would have been before 1894 on there. And so for us to be able to read those different layers that you have in there, that kind of gives us a really good indicator of major events that happened in Deadwood's history. Now, going back to our site that we have here, one of the big things is that we were looking for silt deposits. We know that there were several major floods that happened in Deadwood. The earliest flood that was recorded was the 1883 flood that basically wiped out most of Deadwood's Main Street. There were also subsequent floods in 1904, I think 1905 and 1906. What's interesting is that when we did the work and we unearthed the roundhouse that was down that area as well too, we found pretty substantial silt deposits. So the roundhouse itself was built, I think, 1891 or 1892.
Correct.
And so we know that it couldn't have been from the 1883 flood. So then that starts ruling in, could have been the 4 to 6 floods that were in there. And most likely that's what we were looking at as well too. So being able to read the soils and then have these artifacts like these things as well, they really go hand in hand, and it really helps us to recreate the past that we have here in Deadwood. So
that's a lot of information. Fascinating seeing Mike cleaning these bottles, finding out what we have. One of them even had a cork in it yet. So we'll continue to do research, but I thought it was appropriate. We're not out on site. We're actually here in the basement doing the cleanup of some of these artifacts that came out today and last week as we continue to monitor that FEMA project where we've done a couple of videos on. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I want to say on behalf of Historic Preservation, Deadwood History, and all of Deadwood, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and that's a wrap.